Mace Windu died, right? Well, according to this, he somehow survived. And what do these early impressions of Bad Batch Season 3 mean for the show? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
When it comes to characters returning to life, or surviving their quote-unquote deaths, there was Boba Fett, which was the highly theorized and anticipated piece to Star Wars. And then I'd say around the same level would be Mace Windu.
It's interesting because I don't picture Mace Windu as theorized as Boba Fett. Like, it's just like Boba Fett's just like, yeah. And there aren't too many others that I can think of where that happens.
Like, oh my gosh, she's got to still be alive, right?
Right. Like, no, usually if they're dead, they're dead.
In theory.
Been proven wrong.
Yeah. Time and time again.
Yeah. Maul, I'm looking at you.
Palpatine.
Palpatine especially. No one saw that coming.
Yeah. Grand Inquisitor.
We're not going there. Or we will, but...
Grand Inquisitor, I'd say, is like the most egregious piece of like someone surviving.
Yeah.
Unlike Mace Windu, in theory, and Boba Fett in particular, and Palpatine, Grand Inquisitor was like, oh, I'm dead. Nope, I'm not. Similar with Sabine, but I'd say with Sabine it's different because there was the expectation that she could die.
Yeah. But the Grand Inquisitor, we knew he was coming.
We knew the Grand Inquisitor was still alive after Obi Wan Kenobi took place.
Yep.
Because Rebels happened, and he's the main bad guy in Rebels. And he doesn't die in Rebels.
Yeah, it was not the best.
Or we know he dies, but
fake death that
we
ever
knew that he showed up in Rebels.
Yes.
So there was no suspense. There were no stakes. We were all like, he's not dead, right? Because we've got a whole realm of proof that he's actually alive. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Going back to Mace Windu. Mace Windu is one of those characters on the same level of like history. Because with Boba Fett, there was decades of theorization of like, oh, he definitely survived, right? He's got Beskar armor. That's not going to get decomposed by the Sarlacc pit's digestive system.
Right.
He's got to survive, right?
Yeah.
And then if you look at Mace Windu died. I will say this, like I always say this, unless you show me their head getting chopped off in front of me, they could still be alive in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this in a little bit, but the idea around like death and its impermanence in Star Wars is like a completely different topic. But when it comes to Mace Windu, I'm torn on that because on the one hand, as Sage who loves Star Wars, who grew up with Star Wars, and has a fan fiction series of YouTube shorts on him surviving, I want him to live because I think there's some interesting stories that could be told. We'll get to it, what that could be in a little bit. But on the other hand, there's other Sage who's like, I am so tired of death not being a thing to really have any consequences in Star Wars because we've got time and time example. Grand Inquisitor, Reva, Darth Maul, Palpatine. I like Darth Maul just because they did a really good job of like fleshing out his story for there to be a purpose of his survival.
He actually gained a character because he survived.
Yes. He went from scary dude with double-bladed lightsaber that looks cool to, okay, this is a rich story and a conflict with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul that like lasted through Rebels. So there's a lot of stuff there that makes him great.
Yeah.
But
still,
Boba Fett, like there's time and time example of these characters that seem to be very much dead that end up becoming alive.
Yeah, especially when the characters are wounded the same way that others are killed.
Yeah, Qui-Gon is looking down from Force Heaven.
Yeah, it's like
real big disappointment.
I wish I had moved 2 centimeters to the right.
You're telling me I could have lived? You're telling me there's a chance.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. But when it comes to why we're talking about this, the Empire is doing a 25th anniversary issue of the magazine. They're talking to the people involved with it, and they're doing like some really cool versions of the posters, some cool photography. They're bringing back to theaters. There's a lot of stuff happening for the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. One of those things is an interview with Samuel L. Jackson, and he still holds to the point that, one, he would love to return as the character, and two, he very much believes that the character is actually still alive. There have been other characters that have fallen off something and survived. That's his belief. And I personally would love to see his character come back again, because I think there's some really interesting stories to be told.
I feel like I don't know enough about Mace Windu. Like, I don't know. We do get to see a fair bit of him, maybe in more of the shows, but like, as far as the movie goes, I don't feel like I got a good sense of his true character. And
if you look at like Legends material when it comes to Mace Windu, there's a lot to be said there when it comes to his character and why he has a purple lightsaber. The real world version is that Samuel L. Jackson wanted a purple lightsaber, so they made a purple lightsaber.
Fair enough.
The in-world version is that lightsaber color dictates your personality and which ones you're called to. Mace Windu uses a very aggressive and more dark side-like lightsaber form. And his belief system is, yes, very much righteous, and he believes there is a right way to live and is on the light side, but he utilizes a lot of the strength of the dark side. I think it was theorized somewhere that he could actually use Force Lightning if it wasn't prohibited by the Jedi Order.
Wow.
He could pull on that side of things. And the example I've used before is like when it comes to like political placements, you can go all the way to the far left and you go all the way to the far right, and eventually it starts looking like you're going around in a circle. Like you meet on the other side. You're both very much against what the other person is saying, but you're also arguing for things that seem very similar.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, I feel like Mace Windu would never fall to the dark side, but he's so far against it, he almost like makes the circuit around.
Yeah, where he'd go to the almost same extent
to
of
make
the
sure
dark
that
side, to make sure that the light side stays good.
Yes.
Fascinating. See, like, this is the stuff that we haven't seen truly from Mace Windu.
Yeah. And like you said, we see a little bit when it comes to the live action stuff, specifically with like Obi Wan and Mace Windu, and then subsequently like some tension between Qui-Gon and Mace Windu. But the only other stuff that we get is in the animated shows, like the Gore Verbinski Clone Wars. We get a little bit of that, and then in the Clone Wars animated show, that's where you get a lot more fleshing out of who Mace Windu is and his belief system.
Yeah, I just think he's a fascinating character that we haven't seen enough of.
Yeah,
which is why I'm totally down to have him live.
Yeah.
Also,
just this one time, please.
It was a long way down.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have.
He flew out.
Yeah.
There's a way that he
out.
could like hit the Star Wars equivalent of like a truck that's filled with garbage in the back,
right,
or something.
Exactly.
Or soft pillows. He goes quite far out and then down. So there is definitely a way that, one, he could survive in a number of ways. It's very ambiguous how he is quote unquote killed. So there's a lot that could be said there. And generally I think it's not much of a stretch to say, hey, this person got shot out. There was no clear like death of him. He got his arm chopped off or his hand and then shot out the window. But like
both things are have often been seen.
In terms of Star Wars,
yes,
'tis but a flesh wound.
Yes, very much something you can live through. So, including being electrocuted. Electrocuted, you can totally live through.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Luke. He got electrocuted for a long time. He was okay. He could still carry a very large man to
who weighed
hangar bay
quite a lot.
Yeah, with gear on top of that. So,
yeah, there's definitely something to be said on his survival. But again, that also opens up the can of worms of like the hypocrisy of me saying I want characters to stay dead while also in the same breath saying
but Mace Windu could live.
Mace Windu would be great to live. I'm fully aware of that. But I think there's something interesting that could be said with Mace Windu's story. And my personal theory that I would love to see is him actually come into the Mandoverse timeline. Because the Mandoverse timeline is fascinating when you think about it. Because Mace Windu, there could be a manner of ways that he didn't get involved in the fight against the Empire. He could have gone almost like the Darth Maul route, where he's almost like insane. He could forget who he is, or he could just not be in the physical capability to make it through that time frame. But why I would like to see him in the Mandoverse time frame is the interesting conflict and story that could be told around him meeting Luke Skywalker, the son of the person that caused him so much pain and
Near
destroyed the Jedi Order, being the person who is rebuilding the Jedi Order in this new era.
That would be wild. That would be so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that would open up too many can of worms. Like, it would be too tempting for the creators to be like, we're just going to make a new show for Mace Windu. It's like, no. We don't need that. But it's fast.
Yeah.
This would be a really good side story. Kind of like how Darth Maul was in Rebels, Clone Wars.
Both of them, really.
Both
like,
of them. Yeah.
In Rebels, he's fulfilling the end of his arc. He is trying to... There's a beauty in that story coming to a close, and almost of an expectation from both sides that this is how it would end. And I think there would be like a lighter viewpoint of that, where there isn't any animosity between Mace Windu and Luke, because Luke didn't do anything to him, but he represents something that I think Mace Windu would both hate and appreciate.
Need a vengeance sort of.
Well, I think just him being birthed from this thing that he stood so much against. One, he didn't want Anakin to be in that position.
Right.
And two, what he stood for when it comes to the Jedi is no like attachments, which therefore like led to the destruction of the Jedi Order at that time, which arguably, in my opinion, should have been fallen. Like, they didn't deserve to continue as they were because they were so bastardized from where they had begun. But that's a different topic.
Yeah, but still, Luke would represent everything that was wrong in what Anakin was doing.
But here he is rebuilding from those ashes. And I think
the
that's
true light,
fascinating.
Yeah, of the Jedi in this dark time. That would be
maybe
so
making mistakes, but he still is trying to rebuild what the Jedi were.
Undoubtedly powerful and just trying. You know, like, you can't help but love a guy who's trying.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that would be really fascinating to see Mace in that situation, like in that conflict of like, how do I approach this person?
Yeah, I think that would be really cool, and they've shown themselves to be pretty good at like integrating characters into stories. If you look at Boba Fett as an example, this long-standing character that ended up surviving, they did a really good job of incorporating him into Mandalorian. Season 2 was a great job of like incorporating him, representing a lot of the fantasies that fans had around how epic he would be. They lost a lot of that in Book of Boba Fett, but I think they did a really good job of incorporating him into The Mandalorian. And I think there's an opportunity for that similar type of situation to be done for Mace Windu. I don't necessarily think there needs to be a Mace Windu show.
Yeah.
But I think it would be awesome to see him in this new era. Not knowing anybody, not being familiar in any way with what is happening in this new realm of Star Wars, but becoming a part of it and helping where he can.
And just seeing Samuel L. Jackson in that role again would just be so great.
Yes.
Especially because he would totally go back to it. And he's not going to let them push him around.
Yeah.
Like, there's still going to be this, like, no, he's going to fight for the character and fight for what the character would actually do. And
honestly, I think they introduce him in the Mandalorian era or Mandoverse and then kill him in the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be an interesting growth point for Luke to see
an old Jedi, but then I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the story would need to be.
Yeah,
but I think there's something interesting there.
I think there could be something there.
Yeah.
When it comes to impact on the galaxy and the change of almost like going from one intro to another, this transitionary area between like eras. You have something like the Bad Batch, and a lot of people have been able to watch the first 8 episodes of The Bad Batch. There's a way that you can, as a content creator or news reporter, to get access to shows early. Typically with animation stuff, you get to watch a good portion of that show before it ends up premiering. And this time, a lot of people were able to watch the first 8 episodes of The Bad Batch Season 3. And it's interesting because I think The Bad Batch is this really awesome way because there's stakes. There's this level of like expectation where they don't have to fulfill anything. Like they know a story that they're going to tell. They don't have to do anything. They can kill off the characters that they create from the show.
Yeah.
They can bring back characters that we know and not necessarily impact things too greatly, but can have roll-on effects for the rest of the galaxy. So I think there's this interesting place when it comes to the Bad Batch because you can have a character like Tech die and maybe stay dead. We'll see what ends up happening when it comes to the Season 3. But a character like Tech can have a death, can have a moment, can have something and have consequences from that moment.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. This is going to be good. Just from what people have been saying. So it's mostly like tweets from...
Yeah. So with this system, you get access to the show. You sign some level of NDA. Depending on the level of show or movie or whatever, you have layers that you can actually discuss. With animated shows or TV shows in general, you can basically summarize your general thoughts and impressions on what you watch, but you can't say much about the specifics. You can't say X character's lightsaber is green, but you can say this character has an interesting take on a lightsaber. Like that's kind of the ways that you can talk about things. But there's a lot when it comes to this because there's mention of higher stakes, incredible animation, Easter eggs, cameos, and other surprises, and quote, "It's an epic ride so far and not ready to say goodbye."
We all are not ready. We are not ready. Not at all.
One other person says fans of Omega and Crosshair especially have something to look forward to, and as usual, the action and emotional beats are balanced wonderfully.
That's good to hear. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see more of Omega and Crosshair. I really want to know what the heck is going on in this place. But man, are we dealing with some feeling like heavy topics as far as like division and isolation and oh gosh.
Yeah, we've theorized this just talking with each other around this future for the Bad Batch, specifically with Season 3, where you have this family unit that slowly gets separated across the 3 seasons that we're getting. A broken family trying to find connection and community throughout the galaxy. But Season 3 seems to like showcase isolation, how you can overcome isolation. Because even though Crosshair and Omega are in the same building and same situation, I don't think they could feel further apart. And then you have the rest of the crew that are also dealing with their own isolation from their family.
And just from the other clones. That's always been kind of something that they rub up against is just the fact that they are a very different unit to all the other units of the clones.
While clones in general have this place in the galaxy where they aren't really valued other than like cannon fodder, you have even like a sub-ostracization of these characters because even they don't fit in with the regular clones. So there's this level of separation from each other, from their own clones, and the rest of the galaxy, really.
Yeah.
So there's really something interesting being told here.
All of these little hints as to what Season 3 is going to bring is... I don't want to say encouraging, but it is encouraging. Like we all know Season 3 is going to be great. It's going to be probably the best season out of this. But at the same time, it's still so good to hear other people being like,
it's like, okay,
I'm not ready, or
my
it's so
hopes
good.
are getting like reinforced a little bit here. There's been a lot of mention a couple times around Palpatine's role in this show.
Yeah.
So generally the shows are around like 24 to 28 episodes, depending on what they're wanting to tell. I think that's about the range for Bad Batch, though. 8 episodes, about a third of it so far.
Yeah.
But just saying, one of I think it was Star Wars Holocron says that Palpatine has never been scarier.
Ooh.
This season ties the entire saga together from prequel trilogy to The Mandalorian to Rise of Skywalker.
Whoa.
Omega and Crosshair are the show's heart, and Palpatine has never been scarier. And I'm really excited to see that because I think Palpatine has been in a very similar role to like Darth Vader, where Darth Vader is imposing, but until Rogue One, you didn't know in what way.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the time frame for Palpatine to show like, here is like peak Palpatine. While Chancellor was pulling the strings behind the scenes trying to get into a position of power, this is Palpatine in the position of power. This is him as the Emperor. And I'm really excited to see what that piece comes into. And maybe we'll see some more Rex. Commander Cody, I think there's still some dangling threads there. And I think that would lead perfectly into this idea of whatever the Emperor's doing.
Yeah. I'm definitely ready to see Palpatine as actually scary again.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a while. He's just kind of seemed like this puppet for a long time. Not that he was
More
the
like
puppet
the
master.
puppet master.
Yeah, but because he was so distant in a way, it was like, yeah, you're just the threat that we all fight against because you're making all these big armies and whatnot. But to see him actually in a role of like scariness, ooh, I'm ready. I am so ready for that.
I think it's time. I think it's time for us to see Palpatine in the role that the rest of the galaxy sees him in. And I'm really excited to see what levels of storytelling, because we're going to get Omega and Crosshair. We're going to get the rest of the crew. We're going to see the repercussions of Tech's death. And then we're also going to see Commander Cody and Palpatine in that era. So there's a lot of story to be told here. And I doubt that we're going to get many quote-unquote filler episodes. So I think generally Bad Batch has shown itself to be quite handy and tactful with how it handles filler episodes.
Yeah.
There are two ways to view filler episodes. One, you just don't have enough information, so they feel like fillers. And I think that's the case for Bad Batch, is a lot of what we consider to be filler episodes, we haven't seen the repercussions of those actions yet. Or they're just made for like, this character and this character are going to get better and have a deeper connection.
Yeah.
The other way is like they just don't know pacing, but I don't think that's the case with Bad Batch. I think they've done a really good job of like, as soon as it starts to feel like a filler episode, something happens or a character moves and develops further.
I would agree for the most part. I think I have noticed, probably mostly in the first season, where it just felt like, ooh, this is a filler. Like it does feel like a filler, regardless if it's still progressing or not. Like, it's probably here for a reason, but I'd like to get back to the main story, please. So yeah.
It does seem like we're going to get some of those moments for sure, because another person says episodes 1 through 5 are stronger than 6 through 8, especially the 8th episode, which wasn't their favorite, though surely more traditional to the show's style. But generally, Filoni and crew have definitely set up an endgame for the show with huge ramifications for the entire galaxy. And that the first 3 episodes play more out like a Star Wars cinematic adventure with cloning mysteries, empire intrigue, space dogfights, stunning artwork, and plenty to sink your teeth into.
Ooh.
So yeah.
I'm excited. I'm impressed with how much it sounds like they've packed into the first 8 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these guys are just posting about like so many Easter eggs and cameos and like stuff like that. I'm like,
to be noticed on the first 8 episodes is like, okay, whoa,
okay, we're not holding back any punches. So I'm excited.
Same here. I'm really looking forward to seeing what changes they make with the show and what ends up happening that's going to cause like galaxy-wide ramifications. Let us know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.